Hi, welcome to Boxes of Lights. I'm Ricky and I'm playing Dice Settlers. I'm going to be playing the solo game for you. And I think this is my third game. I played multiplayer once, so fourth game. Let's just quickly run through the setup. We're settlers populating empty lands, trying to earn victory points. Different player accounts will have different numbers of victory point tokens, but during the course of the game we're earning tokens. If all 30 are exhausted at the end of a round, that will end the game. If 3 colours are exhausted, only 2 colours remain, the game ends. If this stack of tiles through exploring becomes exhausted, the game ends. There's also another way, and that's if each player has, I'm blue, if each player has 5 houses, if they manage to place all these by turning settlements into cities, then that also ends the game. We'll come to that. This is also a dice building game, so it looks like a Euro, but it has lots of dice rolling. So it's an interesting mashup of mechanisms. We've got a civilization that we're creating where we're going to earn victory points through area control. 2 stacks of tiles. These are the ones, they've got different backs, you notice. So in a 2-player game, we're using tiles 1 to 27. There's a whole bunch more for the 3-4-player game. We're just going to take 3 of these tiles, the rest go back in the box. We can select one of these as our starting tile. Let's say I choose this one. Actually, I'm going to go with this one. And then our opponent in the solo game, an AI-driven player, will pick the second. The other one goes back in the box. Okay. I knew the deserts were going to come out, so I chose the mountains. Victory points come from area control of the tiles that we've explored, from victory points that we've collected through the course of the game. They also come from collecting dice, and this is a significant way of earning victory points. For every 2 dice you collect at the end of the game, you'll get 3 victory points, and you'll see how significant that becomes when we've got a pool of just 30 here. Lastly, there's victory points to be had by researching these technologies. At the start of the game, you'll have a random collection. You've got 1 gold, 1 copper, 1 bronze, 2 green, 2 blue, and 2 red. The game encourages you to use a fixed set of cards for your first game. So that's what I've done here, because chances are, if you want to play along with me, these are the cards that you'll want to use. But from your regular games onwards, there's a random selection, right? So there's tons to choose from. There's loads of variety in this game. And now these go back in the box. So this is us. We're set up here. Our player board, handy reference guide. We'll talk about what these different things mean in a minute. There's a little key here to show you what's on each side of these different coloured dice. Everyone starts with 3 white, 1 yellow, 1 green. Okay, so this is our AI opponent. I'm blue, they're red. You can choose whichever colours you wish. We start with their 5 dice. I'm just going to put them in this bag and then draw them randomly to create a little queue of dice for the bots. For me, I then take my 5 dice, pop them in this bag. You'll remember, we chose some starting tiles. So this one's mine, this one's theirs, the AI. There's very little on these tiles to start with. There's terrain types, we've got mountains and plains. If I'd chosen this tile, then I'd get one of these resources, that's 1 food, and a yellow die. The yellow die would come here from the supply. There's 5 of each, and it would go into my spent dice area. Okay, I'd place it here. These are dice that I'm going to be drawing. Dice that I draw go here in this active dice area, and these are dice I can use. Dice that are spent go here, and then they'll replenish into my bag at some point later. Alright, so during setup, any dice on the tiles that you draw go to your spent dice area. Resources, in this case food, would go here on your player mat. They would become resources that I can then spend. We'll come to that in a bit. I chose this tile though. During setup, we've given ourselves these 6 little cubes. These represent what they're called tents, all right? The tents, they're settlements that we've placed on the map. So the tile that we choose during setup, we place one of our tents here. We'll do the same for the bots, right? This bonus happens to say, how many dice do I pull from my bag every turn? +1. The default, or the starting level is 3. So actually, I'm going to have 4. I'm going to be able to pull 4 dice from my bag each turn. Nice way to get extra options at the start of the game. The dice that you'll be rolling are your means to taking actions, and we'll come to that shortly. Final piece of setup, and that's for the bots. They also started with 6 tents, so 1 on their tile, and there are 5 left for future settlement. There are 5 starting dice we've already done, and then they've got this little wheel here that's going to be used to control their actions. It starts pointing at this forearm icon. Right, that's the action we're taking, and they also start with 1 gold resource, which we place next to the compass, the explore action. Right, so always set up that way playing solo. Right, we're ready to go. Oh, last bit of setup. We're first player, so this is pointing at us. And we draw during the roll phase, so it's all handy here. So we're going to roll our dice, we're going to use those dice to take actions. Then we're going to clean up, go again. All right. After cleaning up, we'll check to see if the game's ended. Okay, so remember, victory point supply is empty. 3 colours are exhausted, tiles are all gone, house is all placed. So if the game is not ended, we go again, right? Roll, actions, clean up, check for victory. Right, so let's roll our dice. I'm pulling 4 dice from my bag. A random 4 dice, and I'm going to roll 4 dice. Okay. These become my active dice. Now in the roll phase, I can spend these pioneers. These hats are pioneer icons. They're kind of good and bad. They're good because they give you control, but bad because they don't do much on their own. So what I'm going to do is show you the different ways you can roll them. You can spend 1 to re-roll 3 dice. Let's say I do that. So to spend a die, take it, move it to the spent dice area, just like these bonus ones. They go down here, right? I've spent it. Now I can re-roll up to 3 dice. Maybe I want to keep this lantern and re-roll these 2, or maybe I want to re-roll the lantern as well. I'm going to do that. I'm going to re-roll all 3. Okay. All right, we've got explore, we've got food, we've got another pioneer. The other way to use pioneer dice is you can spend 1 and then set the face of one of these dice to anything you wish. That's my roll phase. Okay. Now I'm looking ahead. We're going to use our dice for actions. When it comes to the action phase, we can only take 2 actions, right? So I know I can take with this die the recruit action, and with this die the explore action, right? So that will be my 2 actions. If you've got more dice of the same, so let's say I happen to roll another one of these instead of a pioneer, I can still take the recruit and the explore, but my explore action will be stronger. It'll be twice as strong because I can use both these dice for a single explore. All right, we'll come to that in a bit. Okay, let's do the bot now. The bot has 5 dice in their pool, just like us. And this little chart here tells us if they've got 5 to 8 dice in their pool, they're going to roll 4 of them. Okay? There's a maximum which is equal to our dice pool plus 1. Remember, our dice pool is now 4. Okay, so their max is 5. Right, for 5 dice, they're going to roll 4 of them, and we take them from the left to right. So 4 dice, like so. So the order's important, and these shuffle forward. We're going to roll these 4 for the bots. Anything showing an action type that's visible on this wheel goes next to that action type. Right, so that's an explore, so we place that one there. Any pioneer dice go in a clockwise direction, the one with the fewest number of dice, which will be here. Resources, they generate their resource. We've got wood and we've got food. We're going to place them in the middle here. Okay, and those dice are now spent. It doesn't matter what order you do them. Just put them back in a random order. It doesn't matter as it goes, because I'll take 4 dice next time anyway. to the right hand end of this queue. Next phase then, actions. We've rolled, now we get to use our dice. We're first player, so we get first action. We're going to have 2 actions. Remember, 2 is our maximum. There are some free actions. They're pretty simple. If you've got 3 tents, you can turn them into a town as a free action. And the next one is some of these tiles, as we explore, we'll see them, will have factories. Factories become free actions. Right? We can take those on our turn as well. But otherwise, we've got 2 actions governed by our dice. So my first action is going to be to explore. This is a strength 1 action, so I get to draw 1 tile. If it were a strength 2 action, I use 2 explore dice, I'd get to draw 2 tiles. Choose one and place it. Right? If it's a strength 3, I draw 3 tiles, choose one and place it. Right? So stronger actions, more choice. 1 die, 1 tile. Okay, into my spent dice area. Now these are the lands we're exploring. 1 strength, explore, draw 1 tile. And it is some forests. The rules are, you've got to place the new tile next to 2 existing tiles. Okay, so I can't place it here, I can place it here, or I can place it here. So it's a bit academic at this point. And then you place a tent on it to show that you have presence there. Now there's 2 lots of tents, there's 5 sitting in my supply. There's also what's called a general supply, so all the other tents, right? When you explore, you take a tent from the general supply, not your personal supply. However, when you explore, if the bot can, they'll take a tent from their personal supply, not the general supply, from their personal supply, and also place it on the tile. They can only do this if they have a tent adjacent. Okay, so if this wasn't here, they wouldn't be able to do that. If they had no tents in their personal supply, they'd not be able to do that. Now we have the option. We can, if we wish, place an additional tent from our personal supply on the newly explored tile. And then it ends there. We don't have to. Now why would we do that? Presence on a tile just means you've got a tent there. Control of a tile means you've got the most tents there. You can be tied for control, right? But if you want to be the sole controlling player, you have to have the most tents there. So that's what we've done. Now at the end of the game, the player who's controlling will score this big number of victory points, 3 victory points. The second placed player would score the smaller number, 1 point. Okay? If they had no presence at all, they wouldn't score for this tile at all. Right, so that's the area control aspect. Different actions will let us invade and remove other people's tents. We also have settle, which allows us to place new tents on tiles. Now there's also these cogs here. The cogs say when the tile is explored, this icon means we immediately get a second action. So I can now take a second action if I wish. Normally it'd be 1 action, then them, then me, right? So you take turns, but that one says 2 actions together. It's a bit academic here because it doesn't make a difference. I've only got 1 die left. But if I had more dice, let's say I had a settle, that's the settle action. Because you can only take 2 actions on a turn, I could do explore and then recruit, or explore and then settle, or indeed recruit and settle. But I couldn't do all 3. This means I could. Make sense? Okay. All right, let's do our recruit action. Recruit says for a strength 1 recruit, I can take 1 die. A strength 3 recruit says I can take 2 dice. A strength 6 recruit, if I had 6 of these, I could take 3 dice. Okay, this is all on these little reference charts. You don't need to remember it. Right, but I've got 1 recruit, strength 1. I can take 1 die from here. I'm going to take a grey die. Okay, that goes in your spent dice area. Right, that's spent. So that's it. That's my turn done. I've taken my 1 action and my bonus 1 action. Now it's over to the bot. The bot rolls this d6. Now this is not a regular d6. It's got a 1 on it, it's got 2 2s, it's got 2 3s and 1 4. Alright, so it's not a regular 6-sided die. We're going to roll this. We've rolled a 3. And now we count steps around this dial. The number of steps that we go is equal to the number of dice and resources at each action. Okay, so we've rolled a 3, so we go 1, 2, 3, like that. Okay, if this were over here, it would be 1, 2, 3, like that. If this were over here, it would be 1, 2, 3, like that. Okay. As far as it goes, it's 1, 2, 3, and he finishes here. And he's going to spend that die. This is a strength 1 action. If he'd rolled a 2, it would have been 1, 2, and then it would have been an explore action of strength 2. It's the number of things at that step. So 1, 2, 3, this is a strength 1, and this is a research action. Okay, that goes to the back of the queue, a strength 1 research action. Now the thing about the solo game is you've got to keep the rulebook handy, unless you're exceptionally good at remembering stuff. It says, select the technology card with the highest victory points that the bot can currently research. What you might want to do to make this job a little easier is just to sort them into order. Okay, so let's do that. Now at the top left of every card is the number of lanterns it costs. Right, we've got a strength 1, we got 1 lantern, or the bot's got 1 lantern, so they can't afford this one. This is a strength 2 research, okay, 2 lanterns. So the card that rewards them with the most victory points that they can afford, this one's worth 0, 1, 1, 2 victory points. It costs 1 lantern, is these large coaches. So we take one of their player tokens, which are these round discs, and they would place it here. However, if we look at these cards, you can see that there's a secondary requirement. You also need to match the terrain requirements. This one says you need forests and mountains. This one says you need just forests. Now, as it goes, they've got presence on plains and forests, but not mountains and forests. We do, they don't. So they can't do this one. Okay. They can do this one because they've got forests here. We've also got scouts. They could do this one. They've got plains and they've got the 1 lantern. So these two are equally viable. So which one of those are they going to choose? We have to go back to the rule book. Okay. If tied, pick the topmost, leftmost technology on display it hasn't researched. So it doesn't matter a great deal which. I mean, it may do because of the terrain, but it says the leftmost. It just depends how you arrange them during setup, right? Just do it randomly. They don't get the benefit from the card. It's purely the 1 victory point. So they're both of equality, really. So they place one of their tokens there. They've got 1 victory point at the end of the game. That's their action. Back to me. I've got no more actions left, so there's nothing I can do. Remember, I already had my second action. I took it ahead of time. Alright, so back to the bots. They get their second action. Let's roll the dice. It's a 2. I don't really need to roll because whatever it does is going to be this action. So it's a strength 2 explore. Dice goes to the back of the queue as usual. Resources are spent. Now with explore, the AI only ever explores 1. So any additional strength, in this case it was a strength 2, just gets converted into victory points. So that's 1 VP for the AI. Another planes. Remember the rules. They have to place it next to 2 adjacent, and they'll want to try and place it as far away from tiles with my tents on as possible. So as it goes, there's 3 places, here, here or here. Wherever they place it. This one's next to 2 of my tiles, that one next to 2. So either spot is fine, so it's up to me where we place it. Let's just stick it here. Remember, they don't get the bonuses for exploring. They place a tent from the general supply as usual. Now if I wish, because I've got presence adjacent, I can place a tile there from my personal supply if I wish. I think I'll do so because I don't have presence on planes right now. And in response, the AI will place one from its personal supply on the same tile. Alright, so that's his explore action done. And there's an interesting development right here. We've got a factory icon. That's one of those free actions. Remember I said on your turn you can take free actions. Now we've had our second turn, so we can't actually come back and take a third and take our free action. That's not allowed. But what this factory says is you can remove a tent to get the benefit. So we could remove a tent, take a food. There's a special rule for the AI. We'll come to that in a minute. For now though, we've both taken our turns, right? 2 turns each. We go to the cleanup phase. If we had any dice unspent, we can keep one of them, but the rest must go to the spent area. Okay. First player token moves, so now the AI will be first player next time. And then lastly, and this is special to the solo game, we can go back to this factory tile. We can do this once on any one factory tile. It's our choice. Where they have 2 or more tents, and more tents than us, we can return a tent from that tile to the bot's personal supply. It's up to us. They don't gain the effect, but it's just a way, if we wish, of simulating the fact that they may choose to trigger the factory. You may choose not to. You may decide, actually, I want to keep their, if their personal supply was empty, for example, you might want to keep it that way, right? Stop them spreading out. But let's say we do that. Let's say we choose to do that. Well, that's it. We've ended the turn. Now we go back to the roll phase next turn. Although they're first player, roll phase is kind of simultaneous in multiplayer game, but in the solo game, always do your roll first. I go to my bag. Remember, we get to draw 4 dice. I've only got 1 in there, so I roll that die. Some wood. Then I replenish my bag, so I take anything from the spent area back in my bag, give it a shake, and now I've got to roll the 3 more. Okay, the 3 more that I need. Okay, perfect. There we go, rolled our 4 dice. We don't have any pioneers, so I'm stuck with what I've got. Let's do the bots. So they've got 5 dice still. So they're going to roll 4 dice. 1, 2, 3, 4. Actions we place around like so. A wooden resource. Now, last time we rolled resources, we rolled wood and food. Their store of goods was empty. Now it's not. Their store is full. So instead of adding this extra wood back in the store, we take the wood and we distribute it around as resources, adding strength to these actions, clockwise, the one with the fewest dice. If there were resource icons already against them, we would skip that one as well, right? So fewest dice where there isn't already a resource. Okay. Alright, so that's them done. This die goes to the end here. Right, actions phase. Their first player. So first action, let's roll the dice, see what they'll do. 4. So we step 4. Okay, so starting here. 1, 2, 3, 4. They're going to explore strength 1. So let's draw a tile. They're going to place it as far away from my tents as possible, so they're going to place it here. Right, that's next to 1 of my tiles. That's next to 2. That's next to 1 of my tiles. So actually, they could even go here, right? Well, it's just as valid. Let's say they go here, and it's forests. So 1 of their tents from the general supply. We are adjacent, so we could go in here if we wished. I think I will, actually. Let's go in. So they take 1 from their personal supply to retain control. Remember, they don't get the benefit, but there is another factory here. And 6 points for having control here. This is a good one. That's their action complete. Now it's down to me. Incidentally, one other thing to be aware of. Let's say this was an explore. When I take my 2 actions, let's say I choose to explore with my first action. I can't explore with my second action. Okay? When I take my first action, it's a strength 2. I use all the explore dice. All right? So you can't split it into 2 and do explore, explore. Right? You explore once, you can't explore with your second action. It has to be either resources or research. Okay? As it goes, I don't have that quandary here because they're all 4 different. And I think what I'd like to do is this one, raid. Let's do the raid. We select a tile where we have presence and remove up to this many tenths of one opponent, replacing them with your own. These come from the personal supply. Okay, so this tile here, I'm going to raid. I'm going to remove this, it goes back to their personal supply, and replace it with one of mine. Note, if I didn't have tenths in my personal supply, I couldn't do the raid. Okay. Right, now I'm going to do my free action. Free action says I can remove a tenth of my colour from this tile to get the benefit. So I can remove this, put it back in my personal supply, and grab the benefit, which is 1 wood. Okay, I'm taking this. It's okay, there's plenty of time left to go back and try and regain control there. That's my turn done. Back to the bots. Let's roll. The second action, it's a 3. So 1, 2, 3. It's going to do a strength, 1, settle. Settled. Strength 1 means places 1 tenth from his personal supply on the map. The rules tell us the priorities are on a tile of a colour it currently has no existing presence on. It's got yellow, it's got green, it hasn't got grey, so it's going here. Now you'll notice I had control here, which meant I had the extra 1 dice quota. But I haven't lost it yet. Okay, if you put another one here, I would lose control. But if I've got control or joint control, I still have access to this extra 1 die. So I've got to look out for that. I don't want to lose control here. Another way of ensuring control is to put a tent, is to build a house. Only one player can build a house on a tile. So once you've built a house, it doesn't matter how many tents are there, you will always have control. My second action, though, I'm going to research. I'm going to research. Spend this. It's only a strength 1. So I can research one of these. So we've got large coaches. I've got forests and mountains. It says pioneers can be used as settles. Forestry says settle can be used as recruit. Scouts says when exploring draw an extra tile. Stability increases my dice quota by 1. I'm going to do this, but there's an extra cost. It's the 1 strength, but also it costs 1 wood. And to get this one down, it doesn't give any victory points at the end of the game. It costs 1 wood, but now I'm up to 5 dice. I get to roll 5 dice every round. Right, that was the second turn. I could take another free action if I wished. Now this factory icon that I've already done, I'll put a blue token here. You can only use 1 factory tile once per round, so that's done. There is another one here, so I could remove a tent here and trigger this this one here, right? And take a food. It may look short-sighted, but I'm going to do that. Back to my personal supply, and I'm going to take a food. Okay, so that one's now done as well. Right, that's all my turns done. So we go to clean up. I get to keep 1 of these dice, okay, not both. I'm going to keep this one. Let's explore. I don't have to. I could exhaust them both. In fact, I might do that. Let's just get rid of both. Yeah, because I've quite fancied doing a settle. Let's get rid of them both. These can come off, ready for the next round. There aren't any factory tiles where they've got 2 and more than me. We move to the next turn. So this time we're going to roll 5 dice. I've only got 1 in my bag, 2 in my bag. 2 in my bag. Refresh, roll 3 more. Okay, there's my active dice pool. No pioneers. I'm first player this turn. Let's do his roll. He's got 4 dice, let's roll them. Okay, so we've got settle, we've got explore. Pioneer goes in the next with the fewest dice and resources, so he's actually going in here. That will give him an extra die. And then 1 wood. So the wood again goes clockwise. Side with the fewest dice that has no resources, so that one there. That goes down here. Okay, we're first player. So I like the idea of doing a big settle. I've got 3 settle dice, a strength 3 settle. A strength 3 means I can do the settle 3 times. For each settle, I can either, and there's a little guide here, we can place a tent from our personal supply on or adjacent to my tents and houses on the map. I can gain a tent from the general to my personal, or I can remove tents from the map back to my personal supply. So I could potentially add, with the strength 3, I could add 3 to the map here. Well, I can place them anywhere because I've got presence everywhere, right? Presence means I'm on it or adjacent to it. So I could place all 3 like this. But what I might do actually, 1, 2, and I can use the factories. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to place 2 here. Then I can take 1 or more free actions. So remember, I can only do this once. I'm taking a tent off here to grab a food. And I'm going to take a tent off here to grab a wood. Okay. And that's why you want to mark them, because you can't do it again. Right, his turn. Let's roll. That's a 2. So that's 1, 2. He's doing an explore. Strength 1. So no extra victory points. But he adds a tile. He's putting a lot of tiles out here, isn't he? So either here or here is furthest from my tents. I'm going to go here because I might exhaust this one of my tents, but I'm going to go here. Alright, mountains. 9 victory points. Wow. So 1 of his from the general supply. 9 victory points. I'm going to do it. And then obviously 1 from his personal supply. Okay. I'm going in here because if I don't, that's 9 points and I get nothing. If I've got presence here, I could potentially use some raids as well. But if I've got presence here, I'll reduce that margin from 9 to just 4, right? Because I get 5 for second place. Right, that was his first turn. My second turn. So I can grab iron. Let's go with a research. It's a strength 1 research. I've got forests, so I think I'm going to go for forestry. Settle icons can now be used as recruit icons. I want to get some more dice. Now there is a way to cull your dice pool as well. So as I'm getting more and more good dice, I might want to get rid of some of these, let's say, some of these white ones. And that's with a trade action, and we've not found it yet. But the trade is on the green, which is coming out next. Do I want to keep this anvil? I don't think I do. Alright, back to him. It's his second action. There's a 1, which means he's going just 1 step and doing the research action as well. So he now has forest and mountains, so he's going for large coaches for 2 victory points. Okay, clean up. I'm actually going to save that die. Yeah, I'm gonna keep that. Let's see what happens. So I'm gonna roll this. Yeah, he becomes first player next time. These come off. I'm gonna roll the green one and draw 4 more. Okay, so this one stays. Okay, this doesn't count against my 5. They go in the bag. Pull 4 more. Roll. So now I've got lots of dice. And I can re-roll 3 if I wish, or set 1 to any side. I'm actually going to re-roll. I'm going to take this. And it's any of our active dice. So I'm going to re-roll these 3. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that didn't work out, did it? Right, I'm going to use this other pioneer and setting this to that. He's got 3 dice available, so he rolls 1 to 3. He's rolling 3. It goes here, that goes here, that goes here. He's taking the first turn. 2, 1, 2. That's spent. He's taking a trade action. And this is where he uses his stored resources. So they come off and he's going to take 2 victory points for each one. Right, that's 4 victory points. Each strength allows him to trade up to 3. And if there are any remaining strength, he'll just take those for VPs instead. So that's 2 resources, that's 4 victory points. We'll give him a 5 and take back that 1. Okay, back to me. I just realised I can't go and get an orange die because I don't have access to the terrain. Remember I picked up this die? That was fine because I had... You can pick up a die that matches terrain you're on, right? Grey die, grey tile. Green die, green tile. We don't have orange or brown terrain exposed yet, so I can't pick those dice up. But I could go and get another green die. So let's do that. Let's go and get another green die. Green, yeah. Green's got trade on it. Obviously it's harder to get, it's only 1 in 6 as opposed to 2 in 6. Let's do his second turn. Oops, it's a 2, 1, 2. It's a strength 2 recruit. So a strength 2 recruit, it only allows him to recruit 1 die. Which colour does he take? It's a colour he has access to but the least of. So he has access to these terrains. He already has green, he already has yellow. So he has access to grey, so he's going to take a grey die. So grey dice are down to 3. Our second action is obviously going to be a strength 3 settle. So remember, when we settle, we can place a tent from our personal supply on a tile I have access to. I can place a tent from a general supply in my personal supply. Or I can remove tents. I'm actually going to do this. And I'm going to take my 2 factory actions. Do this. Gain a food and a wood. Stocking up. And that's the end of another turn. And I think the end of a video. Join me next time as we continue Dice Settlers from David Terzi.